Advancing African economies through digitisation while creating jobs remains the focus of talks in Rwanda. Delegates at the World Economic Forum have gathered for a second day to share ideas. Nompumelelo Saziba is in Kigali. Let's join her now in the Rwandan capital. Nompu, good afternoon. What's been the highlights of the second day so far, Nompu?
Thanks very much, Devon. Yes, well, there's been a few open sessions on various topics. Earlier today, there were discussions around Africans, creative Africans, turning their ideas into actual how to translate them and sell them and make money from them. So these are one of the issues that were being looked at. President Paul Kagame of Rwanda was speaking as a keynote speaker at one discussion on the fourth industrial revolution, just giving some insights to other African nations and other people who are here about how Rwanda has been going on its path in the digital revolution, having thousands and thousands of kilometers of broadband infrastructure placed around the country, and with more intention to invest further. The Rwandan government is going to be, or has actually launched, what they call the Kigali Innovation Center, where there are more ideas coming out of that in terms of how to further ICT and obviously ultimately the economy. Later this afternoon, there's going to be a session on infrastructure investment. We know that Africa is bedeviled with the problem of a lack of infrastructure, right through from energy right through to water, roads, and so on. You've got a number of finance ministers meeting, including our very own Pravin Gordhan. Apparently, he's hosting a number of finance ministers as South Africa. So obviously, the issue of integration, African integration, so important. The more we trade with each other, only trades about 10% amongst themselves, and yet with other countries or other regions like Europe, China, and so on, we trade so much more. We don't look internally within ourselves, where there's so many talents and so many things that we can share with each other. So these are some of the discussions I suppose they would be having, and that's basically it. So here we're going to have Cyril Ramaphosa, the Deputy President, speaking at the infrastructure investment panel a bit later. Devon.
All right, Nompu, before I let you go, I mean, you've been speaking to observers, economists, I believe, as well, both internationally and from South Africa. What's their take on the value of what's been happening so far?
Well, you know, economists I've spoken to are very supportive of the theme, which is all about a digital revolution in Africa. Because, for example, I attended a session on health medicine yesterday. And if you look at a country like Nigeria, they were saying that if you were to try and build hospitals and health services in the traditional way that they've been built, say, in the developed world, it would take literally 800 years to do that and serve a Nigerian economy as big as it is. That's obviously absurd. So they were talking about how do you circumvent that? They've got this concept called leapfrogging. And so what you do is you create an ICT medium. So, for example, you have one doctor servicing people in a rural village by perhaps using television, so that community workers in the rural areas can actually see what the doctor is instructing or doing, so that they can replicate that in the villages and so on. There's also a reluctance, particularly in Nigeria, for doctors to go to those kind of areas and serve. So they were just talking about innovative ways of dealing with those issues. The Nigerian health minister talked about taking medicine to clients rather than clients going to medicine, because, you know, African countries are huge and service centers tend to be in towns and so on. So these are some of the things that were being discussed. Very interesting. They're also what you call social entrepreneurs here. They're getting awards for having done really bright things around a lack of energy in given communities. making lighting, for example, affordable to communities, just doing things, thinking out of the box in terms of just making people's lives a little bit easier that don't live in the towns and cities. Devon.
All right, thanks very much indeed. Some scratchy signal at the end, but Nompu, thanks indeed for tying up with us from Kigali. Now, let's take a look.